Welcome to the second session of the Digital Transformation in Government Conference, Day 3. Today we are fortunate to have Rachel Porteous, who's the Chief Information Officer in the Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Centre of Canada, more affectionately known in the National Capital as FINTRAC. She'll be talking about the digital transformation of a high security organization in the era of COVID. Ms. Porteous is a distinguished senior executive, over 30 years of IMIT experience with a proven track record. She's a strong leader, able to drive transformations and service delivery while developing high-performing teams. I've had the privilege of working for Rachel many years ago. Ms. Porteous has been the Chief Information Officer at FINTRAC since January of 2019. She was the Chief Information Officer and Director General Solutions and Information Management Branch at Immigrations, Refugees and Citizenship Canada from 2017 to 2019. Prior to IRCC, Ms. Porteous occupied the position of Director General, Chief Technology Officer at Public Services and Procurement Canada, where she was responsible to lead the advancements in enterprise architecture and innovation, IT security, and product management. Ms. Porteous has an extensive experience in leading and supporting the development and implementation of the departmental IT products. As the Executive Director and Acting Director General of Enterprise Services at Canada's Border Services Agency and the Director of Information Management and Enterprise Resource Planning Systems at the Communication Security Establishment, she has managed multi-million-dollar projects. She's developed and led and maintained consultative and collaborative partnerships, networks, and projects. She started her career at Indian and Northern Affairs, where she excelled in multiple IMIT positions over a period of 17 years. Ms. Porteous holds a Bachelor of Applied Science with a major in Computer Science from Université de Québec en Outaouais. She's a mother of 2 daughters and volunteers in two non-for-profit organizations, the Association of Public Sector Information Professionals, better known as DTiG, and the CIO Association of Canada. She's dedicated a great deal of work, volunteer work, and time on her own hook to basically make these organizations a success. So without further ado, over to you, Rachel.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob, for the great introduction, and thanks. I feel privileged to be here today to present to this chapter and to this conference. So basically what I want to do today, I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time on 2 aspects. So of course, I'm going to talk to you about exploring the cultural, the technological, and the security challenges of transforming our center while navigating a global pandemic. But I wanted to take a little bit of time to speak to you about myself and about my story as a woman in IT. So as Bob mentioned, I've been working in the government of Canada for over 30 years. I still can't believe that. I still think that I'm the little student that started 30 years ago, but you know, young at heart. But I wanted to speak to the fact that, you know, a woman in IT, when I started back in, I guess in 1989 is when I went back, went to university in math. Basically went to the University of Ottawa and figured that my strength in college was math, and it kind of deviated from my career path that I wanted to take into health sciences. So the chemistry and the physics weren't my biggest strength. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to go into science at Ottawa U, and landed in mathematics. And with that, you know, came along the courses of, you know, computer science. So figured, hey, well, I guess that's the new thing. This is what I need to get into. That's the future that we're all going to face. So I decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in computer science. Being a French Canadian, even though I'm speaking English now, but for 30 years I've been speaking in English. But being a French Canadian, I had some challenges at Ottawa U because the program was mainly in English, math in English and math in French, not quite the same things. And that's where I made a transition over to Université du Québec en Outaouais. Back then it was called Université du Québec à Hull, where I did my bachelor's degree. And again, right, starting from that point, I could see that not too many women in this program, right? But again, I think my upbringing kind of made me think that, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just continue and you know, persevere in that field. because that's where I felt that there was the most openings in the government of Canada and in the private sector around the Ottawa area, which is where I lived and was raised. So having said that, I moved into the government of Canada as a student, spent some time there, and really had to kind of, when I look back at the 30 years that I've had, right, there's some character traits that came back to me that I think are extremely important for women in IT. And before I go to those, right, I mean, the stats speaks for themselves in terms of women in IT. It's still an uphill battle in terms of women, right? They're still being underrepresented and underpaid in different areas. In most tech jobs, I'd say that, 47% of the employed adults, there's 25% of the tech roles are performed by women. So there's more women that are getting into STEM degrees, that's for sure, but there's only about 19% that are in tech. And you see that there's still some challenges in that realm. I've participated in some things that we call hackathons, where we went into coding for girls, and went into the school programs and try to help the girls and entice the girls in grade 9 to to make the move into science and science-based types of courses, and of course into IT. And again, I think that it's extremely important, right, for us to entice our young girls to look at technology, robotics, STEM, any types of science-based programs in the future. But I think we need to start really, really young, right? So in the current process, we are we're trying to attain those girls at the age in grade 9, which their minds are already made up, right? So I think we need to kind of look at that. So to go back to the character traits that I'm presenting here today, throughout my career, what I've seen in my career is, the resilience, tenacity, and courage are 3 of the character traits that I think are extremely important. When I talk about resilience, right, we mean that you need to be resistant to change. You need to be able to recover fast from different things, and you have to have the strength to cope with stressful situations. In terms of resilience, I've experienced that at work, right? Every day, I think that there's always a situation where you need to make sure that you're able to recover from the different stresses that you're facing, and that you keep on plowing through, right, to be able to continue your work every day. In terms of tenacity, I've always been driving. Must be, you always have to be driving with your end vision in mind and push yourself to overcome barriers and to take down some of those obstacles. In terms of courage, every day we exemplify courage. At times things will get tough and scary, but certainly have to, you'll certainly question yourself as you go along. But I think that it's important that, you keep on going. I've looked back at my career and I've thought about, did I see any examples of where I felt that I was not up to par, or was not meeting the requirements of my job, or trying to be like others, and be result oriented and deliver on the things that I had to deliver. And I have to admit that I have some key thoughts about the past. And today I look at it and say, yeah, maybe it was an issue where because I was a woman, I didn't get this job, or because I was a woman, I wasn't being listened to in certain meetings, or in certain situations. But all in all, if I'd have, I don't think I would change anything. I went in to my jobs. I did the best I could. I pushed through. I was able to accomplish what I was supposed to accomplish. I was able to demonstrate that I can do the work, and that I can persevere, and that I can be successful. So, never quit, never think that you're no better than another. I think that it's important for women to build some character and to continue to demonstrate that, we're here and we make a difference. I really don't see myself differently than men. I feel that a lot of the men that are surrounding me are my allies. They support me just like I support them. So, I mean, there's different situations for different people, but I think if you concentrate on resilience, on tenacity, and on courage, and you exemplify those character traits, you have a good chance to to persevere in anything that you undertake. So, having said that, I'm going to move over to whoops. Sorry, I'm going to move over to my presentation and talk to you a little bit about the work that we've done in terms of transforming our agency, our center, while we were navigating a global pandemic. And basically what I want to talk about here is I want to talk to you a little bit about a high security organization. And when I say high security organization, we're an organization that work with with classified information and data. And as we said before, I'm not sure actually, I want to just take a few moments and talk to you about what is FINTRAC, right? Because maybe you don't have a knowledge of what FINTRAC is. FINTRAC is the Financial Transaction and Report Analysis Center of Canada, and it is the Canadian Financial Intelligence Unit. So each country has a financial intelligence unit. We are it for Canada. We're called FINTRAC. And what do? We facilitate the detection, the prevention, and the deterrence of money laundering and the financing of terrorist activities, while ensuring the protection of the personal information under our control. So, having said that, we're an organization that speaks to to a high level of security. We had at the time, right, as we entered into the pandemic, we had very little remote access, right? Like, I mean, we had some, right, for some parts of our business, but that was not a key challenge and a key delivery point that we were looking to achieve in the future. We wanted to make sure that we were a little bit flexible for a few people, but mainly, very insular on-prem type of security. And our folks were really working internally to respond to the evolving threats, working with our partners. We had some of the changing landscape that we had, and that's the reason why we wanted to embark into our transformation, to respond to the increasing volumes and the digital government imperative, right? Making sure that we move to a more digital and adopt some of the digital principles of the Government of Canada, and some of the rigid digital changes and the opportunities that some of the technologies are bringing to us today. So we wanted to move to a more remote work activity, and with some remote security, right? So COVID was really the paradigm shift for us. It gave us the opportunity, right, to respond to broader business pain points during the pandemic. And we were able to kind of go through a process to really respond to those landscape changes that were occurring in our environment. So I'll kind of go through a little bit how we established our digital transformation and how we built our strategy during these hard times. And we had a big group of people that had to take care of, hey, how do we get our folks connected? How do we provide them with the right assets for them to be able to deliver on their mandates and continue to do that while they're working from home? So basically we've created a strategy to address our new reality. And what we've done this in steps. And the first step was really to conduct some broad consultations with our business to seek and understand what were their main critical points. So we really listened actively in terms of, building that strong relationship with them and understanding really what some of their requirements were. Then we also focused on those critical pain points that they've identified, right? So we drew out the ones that, were the most, provide that were the obstacles, if you want, for them to be able to continue their work, right? We want to concentrate on their core business. We want to focus on the problems that were limiting their work and their ability to gain more business value in the future. Then we also identified those opportunities. We prioritized those opportunities that we could potentially transform, right? And that would bring the biggest value and leapfrog that organization using key technologies that we have to our disposition today. We built a digital framework around that. We adopted, some proposed build strategies to kickstart our digital journey, and we started small. Right, but we developed, a strategy based on some pillars, and I'll speak to the pillars in a few minutes. And then we developed these different concept cases that were built from the business lines. And then we kind of, identified some of the activities that needed to be done throughout those concept cases. So we did launch our first steps, right? That's our fifth step, was really to launch, right? Let's do this. And we will learn as we're going through it, and let's repeat it, and let's improve our process going forward. So a great framework that was built in the organization for our digital strategy. So as I spoke earlier, right, we're kind of trying to create a purpose-built strategy to drive our business value. We've based that on three key pillars. So those three key pillars were around establishing the digital foundation. So we're looking to establish, some foundational digital capacity and processes and infrastructure. So we're really looking at, what do we need from an infrastructure perspective, from a security perspective, our architecture, what's our end state architecture, where do we want to end up, and where do we need to kind of change a little bit in terms of IMIT, specifically, the underlying components to be able to service the business in the future. So where were some of those critical pain points and the quick wins that we could put in place in those areas? We also looked at our second pillar, which really was about automating the core business. And there we wanted to speed up the core business through digital automation and advanced analytics. So we've been working with the business to identify their pain points, right? What are the key points or the key areas that they would need to work on to be able to leapfrog in their business programs? And then we want to establish foundational digital capacity, processes, and infrastructure again, but now more in terms of developing and building a digital office. So really looking at, hey, now that we're having folks work from home, how do we connect ourselves to each other? How do we, have discussions with our partners or with our law enforcement? So we've been working on those pieces, and really that was about, establishing some core collaboration tools, looking at upgrading some of our tool sets in terms of our enterprise resource planning tools. So there's a whole bunch of different pain points that have been identified in those areas. So let me talk to you a little bit about some practical ways that FINTRAC has enabled our digital strategy and how we've been able to drive some value in those components. So the first area that I want to talk about is really about, moving from a plan, build, run type of culture to an adjust and iterate culture. So we've adopted an agile process, agile processes as a lever for the change, to change the culture that we had. We've moved from, some long-standing rigid and infrastructure building mindset, right? Where, we had some large-scale project funding that was provided to us. We had some rigid portfolios. We gather the requirements. We use some waterfall development, and it was more project driven, and we had a certain governance that was surrounding all this. And what we're looking to do is really to move to a more, small a agile product driven organizational culture. And basically we're looking there at iterative ongoing planning. We're looking at, product driven experiences. We're looking at really concentrating on our client segments and on the user experience. Some change leadership had to be brought into force so that we can kind of benefit and create an organization that was more resilient, in a time where, the pace of change was already increasing. And not only were we in the pandemic, I mean, I know we're still in a pandemic, right? And I'm hoping that we've passed the bigger part of that pandemic, but still, right? There's still some great challenges relating to that we need to sustain. But again, in adopting the agile processes, we're looking to ensure that the organization can adapt quickly and evolve their priorities, right? And be able to leverage the enabling technologies that exist, allow the organization to address their pain points and to improve the services to Canadians, and to be able to de-risk some of the product development process and ensure that the benefits and the outcomes match the client expectations that we have. Another way that we've leapfrogged in our digital strategy is around balancing our security and innovation with the essential guardrails in place. So of course, we moved from being more insular, moat and castle kind of security design, right, to move to some more information security and privacy by design. And to do that, right, we're looking to greatly reduce the attack surface areas, and allow the organization to prescribe some enhanced security architectures where needed. So we've moved from some overarching and all-encompassing type of security model, and looking at how can we institute more kind of zero trust or SASE types of security in our environments to be able to provide utmost security and so that was going to give us some benefits in terms of allow the organization to move and modernize some less sensitive assets with confidence and at a faster pace, while securing, instilling some key and speeding up our security process where appropriate, so that we can be able to advance some of the work that we had that we have going forward. Oops. The next area was really around assessing our cloud opportunities. And again, I know cloud's been there for like 10, 15 years. We're in the government of Canada. Many organizations have moved into the cloud, and we had taken a different stance around that at the beginning. And now we're looking at leveraging that, because there's so many technologies out there that, we can leverage, but we have to do that in a proper way. So we want to be able to assess the opportunities that we have there against the numerous threats of the foreign actors. And we want to move from a traditional procurement type of work and, with limited access to vendor landscape, to being able to prototype through with the vendors through some cloud portals. So we're really, looking to instill more agile procurement. We're working with some of our partners in the government of Canada to establish that for us, and to gain more efficiencies and be more effective, and be able to deliver on, faster on some of our deliveries in terms of the core business that we want to advance. So we want to be able to be a bigger competitors in terms of, doing some prototypes. We want to be able to evaluate against, some specific cases. And we want to also be able to prototype against some realistic synthetic types of data, right? So that we can leverage our vendors and identify key technologies that can help us advance our mandate in the future. And what that's going to give us is really an opportunity to leapfrog in some areas where we wouldn't have been able to do that with our current stance of, working like preparing some long requests for proposals and procurements that take many years, and by the time you implement the solution is now désuet, so meaning that it's now out of date and you need to move forward. The next part is really around exploring the integration of custom and COTS solutions through service-oriented architecture. So basically here we wanted to move from monolithic, difficult to change architectures to more of a service-oriented, flexible architecture. So we want to be able to, build some smaller components, adapt to the changing needs of the business. And as I spoke earlier, we're looking to adopt the Agile methodology, right? So again, we want to be able to do some sprints, to do some, some small little components, some minimal viable products, right? To be able and work very closely with the business to be able to iterate on those things, fail if we need to, pick up our stuff and move forward to develop the requirements and the needs of the business. We want this to be easily maintained, and we want to be able to update our architecture as we move forward, and we want to be able to do some frequent fast releases. And what this would bring us in terms of benefits really is, the service-oriented architecture is a technical practice with major business value. I'm sure you know that. We're looking for new solutions that can be tested quickly in a safe environment, but again, delivering incremental benefits. Some parallel evolution of the business operation. So really looking at how do we move from our legacy to our new operating simultaneously, and provide some gradual change management strategies so that we can create a culture of change and learning through doing. And again, as I said, it's about, iterating small pieces, failing or having issues or facing some obstacles, but then you pick yourself back up, you pick the work back up, we change certain things and we move forward. I think that's the way to go, and the way to be able to change the culture that we have today. So basically, in terms of some key challenges and barriers that we continue to overcome, right? So I want to make sure that, this is not an easy process to go through. It's important for us to understand how product management works in government, right? Because it's different than how it works in the private sector. We also need to change the culture and the mindsets of our people, right? So culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So we want to make sure that the folks have a different mindset, and they don't think of IM and IT as an organization that we go to once we have the whole kind of cake almost cooked, right? We're part of that recipe, and we want to make sure that we're a partner at the table, having some discussions and building these different products with the team. We want to make sure that some of the that we convince our people that it's okay to fail fast, that it doesn't have to be perfect the first time, and that's why we build these minimal viable products. And we also want to make sure that we're dealing with the change fatigue, right? That it's in this continually changing environment, specifically during COVID, and making sure that, running the business at the same time as we're transforming the business. So, I always speak as some experience that I've had when I worked at Canada Border Services was that, we have to do, we're doing maintenance and support, but we also have to be able to innovate. And, we'd always say that we can't bring those systems down. We have to basically, we use the analogy that we had to change the wheels of a plane while it's flying. So, I mean, in most businesses, the business has to continue. You can't just stop it for a year or 2 years or for a month or 2 months so that we can kind of work at making some of those changes. So I think that, these are some of the top 5 challenges that we need to overcome. And again, I think that it comes back to, being resilient, being courageous, and have some tenacity. I spoke to those character traits in terms of, a woman that works in IT and some of the challenges that we may face, but I think that we face these challenges every day in what we undertake. So I hope that you'll be able to take some of these components and apply them into your environment. So back to you, Bob, I guess, in terms of questions and answers.
And suddenly I appear out of the blue. There we go. Thank you very much, Rachel. That was a great presentation. I'd like to reiterate the requirement. We can't take 50% of our workforce when we're desperately short of talent, and the women, and not engage them fully. They've done a wonderful job. I've had the privilege of working for Rachel, learned a great deal from her. Society has changed. We've got to start getting people into STEM. My 2 daughters are engineers. I don't have to convince them. My wife's a scientist. So times are changing. So let's encourage women and see what some of the barriers are and get them into the business. In the meantime, I love that slide, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think that's that that's very pertinent. Now I'm asking everybody within the audience, please, if you have questions, put them in, and we'll basically Rachel will have time to answer them. So in the meantime, I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that have already been gone through the hopper. And okay, Rachel. What are the most challenging security risks because of working remotely? Can you elaborate your strategy to address them?
Well, you know, like working in the government of Canada, we're serviced by an organization that's called Shared Services Canada. Not all organizations are, but ours is. There's about 43 different departments, and then there's probably another, 40 or so that are clients of that organization. I mean, for sure, it's important that we make sure that, we provide the utmost security. In government of Canada, and I think in most organizations, folks have established some key security components to ensure that folks that are working at home are able to do their work. We do that through, virtual private networks, and being able to access some of our information and an utmost security in terms of the access to the different systems that the folks need to access at work. Of course, we want to make sure also that we provide, like the rest of the government of Canada, we provide the assets to our employees. So assets are being provided, and that's the assets that they're using. We provide them with a whole slew of different guidelines in terms of working from home, because it's different, right? And for our organization, we had not been doing that. We had just actually developed our telework policy. We had just started that, and at the time that we were faced with COVID, there was probably only about 25 access points that could be used throughout the organization. Now, FINTRAC is a small organization. We have about 400 employees that work, so extremely small compared to other organizations that I've worked with. But the mandate is extremely important, and it's important for us to ensure that our endpoints are secure, that the network we're using from our Shared Services Canada service provider, that's secure, right? And that the folks have the information in terms of how to safeguard your environment at home, right? The paper you're using, the information you're dealing with, and the surroundings.
Okay, great, thank you. I can do this talk, and we'll go. No, FinTrack. Okay, it's a high security environment. Were you able to transition 100% of your workplace to remote working?
No, Bob. We do have I'd say probably a good third of our organization, if not a little bit more, that's still working on prem, right? So during the COVID, we were like other departments, we were faced with COVID, and we had to make sure, right, that we had the proper organization in terms of our work, right, the building itself and our premises and the security around that, and I mean the health security around that, right? And so the occupational and safety of our employees. And to do that, right, we instituted some different floors where people could work, right, to open up so that the folks that had to be at work were able to continue doing their work. So yeah, we have a good third of our organization that remained on site at all times. And of course, from an IMIT perspective, I also have about a third of my organization too that had to be at work to work on the more secure networks that we provide services to.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. What we're going to do is, sorry. Okay, what are some of the activities that you conducted over at FinTrack to support cultural change and change mindset? You were talking about change fatigue over at FinTrack. How did you manage to overcome that?
Well, it's a very difficult thing, right? I mean, there's one thing about the change fatigue, and I think that, there's a lot of work on our plates now, let alone COVID, that's impacting that. So it's been extremely important for us to ensure that our employees had what they needed to do their work, but also had the a flexibility with their managers to be able to be flexible in their environments, right? In terms of their hours of work, or the times that they needed to to perform their duties for work, and balancing that with their family. So that was one part. The second part, in terms of the cultural mindset, what we're trying to instill at FINTRAC, and we've been doing that in the past year, is really around creating a digital mindset, right? So we want them to think about what can they do in their day-to-day job. Every employee, not just IMIT, but how can everyone in their day-to-day job look at their work and see where they can gain some efficiencies by either automating or stopping to do some of those different processes that they're doing. We're really looking at, and I think most departments are in this boat, but we're really looking at using the administrative work that folks are doing, like the searching, the copy pasting, the aggregating. We want to be able to automate those processes for the business even more than what they are today, right? To provide them with the ability to concentrate really on the analysis work that needs to be done. We've done a lot of work in terms of culture change, in terms of sessions around some of the character traits and some of the leadership competencies that are required, and that we're looking for, like on the how we do our work. So we've spent a lot of time on that component, Bob, to be able to try to instill a different culture set, right? And it's not easy. Culture is something that's the hardest part to change, but we are trying to do that with some different lunch and learns, different sessions that we have in terms of org change management. Now that we're moving to product management, so there's a lot of sessions relating to that. And org change management is all about, sorry, not org change management, but product management is all about the people, right? It's all about the people changing their mindsets and being able or willing to change the way they do their work. So we spent a lot of time on that, and a lot of time on our mental health of our employees. I think that's a crucial area today based on COVID. I think that it was extremely important for us to ensure that we had touch points with all of our employees.
I think the latter point you raised is going to be raised. We have an entire session on it by Amarjeet Kaur a little bit later on, and she developed over at Public Works an application that would help people identify that they were having problems with mental health. And I think this is, anyways, I just wanted to raise the point. It's not just unique within your organization. I've got a interesting question. Let me know whether this is with respect to virtual currency transaction report. What are the challenges you face reporting entities to comply with the amendment, especially in times of the pandemic-related stresses on business?
Well, we have a really good relationship with the reporting entities. So we've been working very closely with them in terms of the new requirements and the amendments that just came through on, I guess it was June 1st. I mean, of course, there's a few challenges there, but our business lines are really working closely with the different reporting entities. There's different sectors in those, but there's a strong relationship there, and we're working through that. We were able to gather the information that we're looking for. We're making changes where changes are required, working very closely with the reporting entities to affect some of those changes, and hoping that we can deliver on different solutions to help them and to reduce the burden on the reporting entities, but also to make sure that they are complying with the regulations.
Okay, we've got a quick question just with respect to how does enterprise architecture support your service-oriented flexible architecture, and how do you scale EA in a small organization? Well, relatively small. 400 is not small, but.
No, but we have a small team of IMIT, right? So
Yeah.
So we've just, we've just built our enterprise architecture program, and it's very nimble, if you want. It spans across multiple business lines. We've got some key players in our architecture, meaning, we have our departmental security officer participates into the security architecture, as we have our ADM, or our senior lead in our enterprise research and policy area, that's also providing some feedback in terms of our data architecture. So we've built our architecture in a certain manner that, we didn't want to build an enterprise architecture discipline that was kind of like the ivory tower, where we develop different things and you can't achieve those results, right? So we incorporate that into each of the different products that we're building. We inform our enterprise architecture end state that we've built. For sure, we're using our service-oriented architecture and the different kind of, whether it's API types of technology or different technologies that we've instilled into the architecture for the future, to help us advance and make sure that we can scale that architecture as we go along and develop our modules.
Okay, thank you. Chris Sauvé is coming from the Public Service Commission, is also going to be talking about EA in a small organization and how it's not necessarily a centralized EA function, it's a decentralized, and everybody does it and contributes to it. Just one quick question, and then we'll have to wrap up the session. What are your key challenges in meeting the Government of Canada cloud strategy?
Well, I mean, for us, our key challenges are really around the security components, right? So, I mean, the Government of Canada, and specifically through Shared Services Canada, we have some offerings, some offerings in terms of cloud at the different levels. In Canada, we have different levels of security for our information. And of course, we're looking to ensure the security of our information, our systems, and the access to the system. So some of the challenges that we've had are, around, it's not really challenges, it's that we're now getting into adopting some of those opportunities in the cloud, and we need to make sure we've got the proper security that is established there. And we're also looking at leapfrogging and benefiting from some of the technologies that are available there, because what we're faced with is, and I think others are faced with the same challenges, is that a lot of the companies and a lot of the softwares are now more, they're less available for on-prem types of implementations, and they're more offered as a SaaS or as a PaaS, which is a software as a service or a platform as a service. So we need to kind of look at that. What works for us, what doesn't work for us. Of course, there's some of our information is totally on-prem, and it's going to stay on-prem, but we want to be able to benefit from some of those architectures of the cloud in the future. So we work very closely with other organizations in the high security realm, and to see where are the best fits for our organization and our deliverables.
Well, great. Well, Rachel, I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to present to us. The presentation was right on, okay, and it touched a great many points, especially in a high security environment where architectures are necessarily a little bit different, and the stresses and the strains are different as well. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you speak, and wish you all the best. So right now what we'll do is we'll just pause. The next presentation is getting ready to go. Robert Gordon's going to be talking about the Cyber Threat Exchange Network. Okay, for that. So without further ado, thank you very much, and I'll be ending the session in about 2 seconds.